Hey, if you're pregnant over 40, I have just the community for you. It's a private community away from Facebook where women just like you come together to meet and support one another during pregnancy. To sign up for the waitlist, go to over40fabulousandpregnant.com/waitlist and be the first to know when the membership is open. I can't wait to see you inside. Welcome to Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant. I'm your host, Jamie Massey, and you're listening to episode 48. If you're new to the show, welcome. We share pregnancy stories of women over 40. Today on the show, we have Jamie from Jacksonville, Florida, to share her pregnancy journey at 41. I am not talking to myself, by the way. I've never said my name this many times in an episode, but we had a great time doing it. I'm pretty sure our voices are different enough that you can tell the difference. Jamie is coming on the show to share her journey to motherhood with snowflake adoption. Isn't that a fun name for embryo adoption? And journey it was. We have 10 years of her IVF journey where she even went through 3 different clinics. She mentions a book in this episode called 2 Eggs, 2 Kids. She said it was about embryo adoption, but I think she misspoke. I just finished reading it last week. It was really good. I loved it. It's about a woman who donates her eggs to 2 different friends. She is so honest about her relationships now with those people and the kids and the husbands and just her thoughts in general. It's worth the read if you're looking into donor eggs or donor sperm or even embryo adoption. And personally, I was really excited to hear Jamie's story. I've mentioned it before, but I've always wanted to do embryo adoption myself. I've always wanted to adopt, and being pregnant is also important to me. So embryo adoption is something that I've really been drawn to. Now, my doctor told me that there was a higher success rate with donor eggs than donor embryos. So that's why I actually ended up going with donor eggs instead of donor embryos. I was really wanting to go the embryo route before we went to the eggs. I discovered embryo adoption with my eye doctor in 2021. I kind of tell this story during the episode, but it was a really fun moment, an unexpected moment at the eye doctor. And I am scheduled for September 7th for more testing at my fertility clinic. My mom gets to go with me this time since my husband can't. I am having the CD138 test where they check the inflammation of the uterus. And the other test is called an Emma test, where it measures the lactobacillus bacteria in the uterus. I think I said it wrong the last time I mentioned it, but my mom was quick to correct me. Lactobacillus bacteria, I think is correct. Both of these tests require a biopsy, so I'm getting them done all at the same time. And if you've had either of these tests, I would love to know your experience with them. I know the Emma test is actually a pretty new test, so I'm excited to get that over with because I am ready to get geared up for transfer number 2, our final embryo. And thank goodness I finally figured out the audio with Zoom, and I didn't have the mic correct for far too many episodes. So I am excited my audio is much better this time around. Sometimes the story is just more important. But thank you for not pointing it out. Also, we have a small team behind my voice working to get you this podcast. I think I've mentioned before, my mom is retired and helps me put the story together for the website and all the Instagram text. The audio form is, yes, totally amazing, but you can also read the story from a third-person point of view too, with all the show notes and more information on the website. And then you can see from Instagram, I need an editor. I'm always in a hurry to do everything, so my husband actually edits all of the text on top of what I edit with the story. So it definitely takes a small team to get this out, but I'm very proud of it. And when I was editing this was the show where she said her doctor wanted her beta to be over 50. We had just recorded this episode during my 2-week wait, and a few days later, when my doctor told me my beta was only 46, I remembered the story. I remembered asking the doctor if she wanted my beta over 50. And she said, no, it's fine. We'll test in 2 days. 2 days later, it was 25. I just found it so interesting that my brain logged on to this story and that 50 number. Speaking of crazy minds, I have still been thinking about what to do with this 1-year anniversary show. And I really wanted your input in the show, not just what I wanted to do, because I want to give you value in the show and not just what we've done over this year, if that's not what you want. So I did a poll on Instagram, what show you wanted the 1-year anniversary to be. I gave options of a recap show of inspiration and tips and advice. And then the second option, well, actually, these are not in the same order, but another option was 5 better questions to ask yourself while trying to conceive, or just another story, or a show on how to believe pregnancy is possible. And I really thought the recap show was going to be the obvious winner. But how to believe pregnancy is possible was hands down the choice on Instagram. I'm really excited to tell you more about it. I definitely know I'll be adding a few highlights from the past show that will also talk about believing too. And with that, I kind of got really excited about 5 better questions to ask yourself while trying to conceive. And so I just thought it would be really great to just add it on the website as an article that you could reference. I've had quite a few women ask me about journal prompts, and I think this is a really good one to explore with the questions. These are all questions I've asked myself. I think it would be really helpful for you also. I'm sure there are many questions we can ask ourselves that's better. When during the 2-week wait, I kept asking myself, am I pregnant? Before, I kept asking myself, why am I not pregnant? And those are really the questions that I think that we ask ourselves that transform our experience of trying to conceive, and it just makes it a worse experience. And so when I started asking myself these better questions, I really started enjoying the experience more. And I started focusing on these questions that I really found fun to think about. I will leave a link to that article in the show notes for you. And, if y'all have better questions, please let me know what they are. I would love to know what they are. And if these 5 questions helped you, hey, I would love to know that also. So with that, let's get into Jamie's pregnancy story at 41. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on the show. And this is not me talking to myself. This is Jamie. Jamie, welcome on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jamie. I don't think I've ever said my own name so many times before. I love it.
So fun. And we have Jamie on to share her pregnancy journey with embryo adoption. I can't wait. Jamie, before we get started with your story, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am 41 years old. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, with my husband and now our almost 11-week-old daughter. We have 2 dogs and 2 cats, basically a farm, if you will, because we figured if we couldn't have human children, we were just going to load up on the 4-legged children. And then the universe was like, joke's on you, and then gave us a 2-legged child. So we just have a full house here. I work in forensic science, and I have for the last 15 plus years. And yeah, this was a 10-year-long journey to get to our daughter. So I'm excited to tell it.
So your journey started quite a while ago, a 10-year journey. Will you kind of tell us how it started?
Yeah, so my husband and I got married in October of 2012. We were 30 years old. And so we knew we wanted to start a family right away. We'd been together almost 5 years at that point. And, at 30, almost 31, we knew that time was not on our side, even though 30 now looking back is so young.
Yeah.
Right. So we started, we even said we wouldn't even care if we were pregnant before the wedding, all that stuff. So went off birth control the summer of 2012 and just kind of went from there. And then by the summer of 2013, I noticed I wasn't ovulating, at least according to the strips and those tests.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And at 31 at that time, I figured, what's the harm in going to get checked out? So we went to our first clinic and they didn't really have anything negative to say. They said some of your numbers are kind of low, but not like, scary low or concerning low. But if you're in a hurry to start a family, you could always do the inseminations, the IUIs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we started, which I think most IVF journeys start there.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that clinic, we did a few of those until the doctor kept calling me Jennifer. And yeah, so I was like, and if you can't remember my name, how do I know you're doing, your job properly? I don't know. I'm just that kind of person that's like, if you can't do the bare minimum, how do I know you're doing the full thing,
Mm-hmm.
So we went to a different clinic after that, and the doctor was an Auburn alumni. My husband's an Auburn alumni. So they just fell in love with each other. And so we started at that clinic and again started with the IUIs, and those were medicated. So, everything was timed and everything. And
what does that mean? That they were medicated?
So some clinics will offer unmedicated insemination. So basically they just do it by blood work and timing through what your hormones are telling them through blood work, mm-hmm. versus medicated, where they will prep you with birth control so they know exactly where you are in your cycle. And they made me get off the birth control on a certain day. Then they start the fertility medications on a certain day, and then they know exactly when to do the insemination.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so we did it both ways, and neither way worked for us. And we did insemination. I couldn't even tell you how many IUIs we tried
Wow.
because, yeah, this was 2014. So I think we did three. And then the doctor was like, well, let's do an exploratory surgery basically to make sure you don't have Yeah, to make sure you don't have endometriosis or fibroids. It's like, well, I've never had bad cramps. Like I've been on I was on birth control for years before I went off of it. So in 2014, I had a hysteroscopy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the right word. And they found endometriosis. So I was shocked. Like, never was told I had it. It was minor. I think it's like they go by stages. Like, it was like the most minor an endometriosis diagnosis could be.
Mm-hmm.
So he excised it. And so I was in recovery for quite some time from that because I ended up getting a uterine infection from the surgery. It was a whole
Wow.
thing. Yeah. And then, so a few months later, I started getting my period again. And those period cramps after the excision were a whole different ballgame. Like, I've never had bad cramps. Again, like I said, I was always on birth control. So maybe that's why. But whoa, these cramps were horrendous. And they pretty much stayed that way for
Mm-hmm.
the rest of my, like, to this day. And I believe we did our first IVF in January of 2015. And because after we did 3 IUIs at the first clinic and 3 IUIs at the second clinic, we kind of sat down and was like, what are we going to get most bang for our buck, basically?
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to go straight on to IVF in January. I don't remember my exact numbers. So during the retrieval, I know that I was one that every time I had a retrieval, I always felt like a failure because I feel like the number of eggs they always got was low compared to what I was reading or hearing other people's stories. I feel like mine were always like 8, 10, 12, something like that. And basically stayed with that clinic until 2018. And we did IVFs on and off, every few months. And it
Mm-hmm.
got to the point where we did donor egg IVF in 2016, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the same exact results. So the donor had so many eggs, right? Like, I don't even, like, in the 20s, something crazy. And so that got us excited. And then when they combined my husband's sperm with the donor eggs, the numbers just plummeted like they did with my eggs. So I'm a scientist by trade, by education, and
Mm-hmm.
I hypothesized that, well, if we're getting the same results using a different person's eggs, this might be a sperm issue. And I brought that up to the doctor, and he was like, no, he's fine. It's, I'm like, but it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did donor egg, and then we did one transfer with her eggs. We had, I think, 3 embryos that survived.
Uh-huh.
And so we did one transfer using one embryo, and that didn't work. And that was like the summer of 2016, excuse me. So I went to my friend who actually worked at this clinic, and she used donor egg from this clinic. And I had a feeling we used the same donor because the donor my husband and I chose looked like my friend and was also a nurse like my friend. So after the first transfer that didn't work with the donor egg embryo, I went to my friend. I was like, you don't have to tell me, but this is the donor number I used. And I just want to know if that's the donor you use, because she ended up getting twins and lots of embryos from that donor. And she said, yes, that's the donor I used.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. And I had a feeling before we even chose her, which is another reason I chose her, because she had such good results. I was like, perfect. Like, you know. And so I went to the doctor and I said, listen, without saying names, I know that this donor gets good results. Why am I not getting good results? And again, he's just saying, it's just the luck of the draw. And I'm like, there's something more to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a different doctor at that clinic, and he's younger, not as old school. He actually did studies on the ERA tests, which I can't exactly remember what the ERA stands for, but it's to test the uterine lining at different times in your cycle to make sure they're actually doing a transfer at the proper time for your body. Not just because, right? Not just because science says it should be day whatever of your cycle. This is when it should be. And so he was willing to take me on as a patient. So I transferred to him and we did a test. So what happens is they do, I believe it is medicated. I can't remember. Gosh, it's been so long, but I believe it's medicated. So they know exactly what day in your cycle you are. And they'll take a sample of your uterine lining on day 5 of your cycle. Day 5 is ideal. Or is it day 6? Now I can't remember. So they take one on the day that, yes, they take a sample on the day that they typically do transfers, which I believe is day 5. A day 5 transfer.
So you're like, it's like a mock transfer, basically, just testing you, right?
No, it's literally they go in and scrape your uterine lining to test the cells.
Right, but they aren't actually doing a transfer.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Gotcha.
They want to see what your uterine lining looks like. So they take a sample of it. Yeah. So they do it on day 5 and then again on day 7. And day 5, they noticed the results were too early. The lining wasn't as thick as they'd want to see it. And then on day 7, it was too thin. Like they could tell it was on the down slope, if you will. So day 6, so it told them that day 6 was the ideal transfer date. And I was like, okay, well, let's try a day 6 transfer. Now that we have these 2 other donor egg embryos, let's try a day 6. And so we did a day 6 with both. I was like, because at this point it was January of 2017. So what am I? Almost 35 at this point. And so I was like, let's just go all in. If it's twins, great. If we get one, even better. Because they say when you transfer one embryo, I think you have like a 30, almost 30% chance of a successful pregnancy. And then 2, I think it's like between 40 and 50%, something like that. At least my clinic, that's what they would tell me. I don't know how true that is, because allegedly a spontaneous pregnancy is like a 12% chance of getting pregnant. Right. Yeah. So we decided, okay, let's take 2 embryos, stick them in there. Well, it didn't work, So this point, I'm so just devastated, because I think we did 4 IVFs with my own eggs before we even decided to try donor egg. Yeah. And my body was, I love to work out. I just love to be active. And my body was hurting from all the shots, the progesterone and oil shots that I was taking in my hips. Like my hips have never been the same since then. Yeah. I mean, I not to jump ahead, but to kind of jump ahead, I refused shots after donor egg embryo transfers. So all my cycles going after this, I refused to do any shots in the hips. after the last failed transfer, we decided to step back and just focus on us. So that was like 2017. And we took a year off from anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think kind of in the back of my head, I was hoping, well, maybe you hear all those stories, you step back from it and you spontaneously get pregnant.
Yeah.
Right. So even though we were stepping back, I still had that in my head that, okay, we stepped back, we're going to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh, we stepped back. And I don't think that helped either, because every month I would be keeping my fingers crossed that I was pregnant.
This could be your time too.
Yes. And also what I failed to mention that we had a couple retrievals where we didn't get any embryos. Like I'd have eggs, but we wouldn't have any viable embryos. So I couldn't even tell you how many retrievals we've done. Like I lost count. So, but yeah, that was our hope, that we would spontaneously get pregnant. Mm-hmm. Well, summer of 2018 rolls around and I'm now 36 and change. My husband's almost 37 at this point. I'm like, let's go to a third clinic, because why not? Because different clinics, different doctors, different embryologists, all the things. So we tried we went to a new clinic that I fell in love with immediately. Loved the doctor. He was so open to hearing me, versus that second clinic. They just did not care about what I wanted to do. I felt like they just wanted my money and were just like, hey, we're the professionals here. But they just wouldn't look at my husband again. Mm-hmm. And that really infuriated me.
So every time you go to a new clinic, do you have to redo all the testing?
Yep. Well, it depended. Yeah, it depends on how long it's been since you did the blood work and all that stuff.
Okay.
So I think the first time we switched, I think it'd been so close that they just took my records, I believe, from the first clinic and just used their numbers, because it'd only been a few months. Mm-hmm. But when we went to the third clinic, yes, we just started from scratch, which was fine because I was also 36, like I said, at that point, and 36. Yeah, 36 at that point. So I was like, let's just see if things have changed, make sure my AMH, hasn't plummeted and all that stuff. So, and actually my numbers at 36 weren't that different from my numbers at 30. So they were very happy with how my body was looking. Mm-hmm. And my husband's were like the low end of normal. And I can't remember what the low end of normal of what, like if it was the number or the shape or the movement. I don't recall, because at that point, we were just going to try inseminations anyway. So the doctor wasn't that worried about it. He's like, let's just, because we'll spin the sperm down and we'll get the good stuff, Mm-hmm. So he didn't seem concerned, but I kept it in the back of my head as like, this could be a thing that we might have to, talk about. Because to backtrack, and this, Jamie, when you do donor egg IVF, maybe you guys don't have to do this. I shouldn't generalize, but we had to go to a therapist.
Yes, we did too.
Right? Okay. Yeah. To make sure that you're mentally prepared for what that means.
Now, for us, he was a counselor. So I don't know if
maybe that's the right word.
And he didn't really seem to judge us per se, like if we're ready. He more or less just kind of wanted to make sure we had those answers of like, what are you going to tell the kid? Think about there could be half sisters, half brothers and sisters around, and talking about that. Like things we didn't really think about. And I was like, oh, that is a good point.
Yes, there was a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for us, I was I was still trying to figure out if I was okay with the idea of it, of the baby being my husband's, but not mine.
Yeah.
I struggled with that
See
at the
that.
beginning. And a big thing that came up because the counselor looked at my husband and was like, what would you feel if the, the tables were turned and it
Mm.
was your wife's DNA, but not yours? And he said, I wouldn't want that.
Huh.
And that hurt my heart. Cause I'm like, well, why is it okay for you to not like that idea, but it's not okay for me not to like this idea? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we actually ended up going to her a few times on our own, the
Oh, good.
counselor. Yeah, because I needed to understand why he wasn't willing if we needed to get there. Because in my brain, as I said, we were getting the same results with donor egg as we were with mine. So I'm thinking, what if we used my egg and donor sperm? And he was like, absolutely not.
Mm.
And that was frustrating because it would have been the cheapest option we'd have, right? Because using donor sperm is like $1,200
Yeah.
or
So
something,
much
right?
cheaper. Yeah.
It's so much cheaper. But he's not very close with his family. And he wanted this to be an opportunity for him to create his own legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that made sense to me. Once we started talking about it in that sense, I was like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Like, you want to create your own family. So we have a genetic disposition in my family of macular degeneration. And I was like, oh, that's great. That takes that out of the equation, at least. Like, because my mom, her twin brother, her sister, her dad, her grandpa, they all went blind by the time they were 60 because of this macular degeneration. And there's a very good chance that's going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought of my child having that scared me.
Mm-hmm.
And those appointments and that mindset kind of carried me through to the next clinic that we went to. And because they even offered, well, donor sperm would probably be your best bet. And we shut it down and explained, and they were okay with that. They were like, well, let's start from the beginning. And we did everything except normal IVF at their clinic, let's just basically say, because I just knew, like, if IUIs weren't working again, and I think we did like 4 or 5 at the new clinic, if those weren't working, I knew that it was going to be a waste of our money to
Mm-hmm.
even try IVF, because I knew in the back of my head that it was a sperm issue.
Yeah.
Like, and it could be a combination. Like, maybe if my husband was trying to create a child with somebody who is super, super fertile, maybe that wouldn't be an issue. Or if I was with somebody who is super fertile, it wouldn't have been an issue. But
Mm-hmm.
because, it just, the stars weren't aligning for us. So when we talked to the clinic about donor embryo, embryo adoption, and we were getting all the information, it just got really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were like, one, the results that we were reading about were just even better than conventional IVF results. And you have to remember that these people that are donating their embryos to the clinic, they've had successful pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
And they just are done with their family and they want to help somebody else. So my head is like, okay, these embryos are probably very healthy. I wouldn't have to send them off to get tested because they've, chances are they're probably healthy. And we never did that. I don't know if you did, but we never sent ours off to be genetically tested. We figured we had, sometimes 2, 3 embryos. So I was like, why am I going to send it off to be thawed, tested, refrozen, to be rethawed for transfer? And that's going to just harm it even more,
Yeah. We were going to choose to have the testing on it just because I
Mm-hmm.
think, trying to protect our feelings really from
Yeah,
having a transfer and having it fail.
right.
We,
That makes sense.
but we didn't even get that far because the embryo didn't even make it to day 5.
Okay.
So that was our plan. Now, the embryos that we used this time with the donor, that she recommended we didn't need to have them tested. She goes, you don't need to test with a 26-year-old eggs.
Right.
Okay.
That's what, yeah. I mean, I would assume that to be true too.
Mm-hmm.
And we just felt that because this couple in 2016, well, the embryos of I'm getting ahead of myself because we did our first embryo adoption in 2021. Let me just make sure that's correct. Yes. We decided in 2020 during the pandemic when, the clinics are shut down because, it's not cosmetic, but it's not a necessity medical need. So
Okay.
the clinics weren't accepting new cycles at the time. They were just
Oh.
focusing on, they were focusing on the ones that had been pregnant prior to the pandemic to keep,
Yeah.
which made sense to me. And that gave us time to really dive in with our counselor about this
Yeah.
option and what that would mean. And obviously we were to the point where we were like, we will shout it from the rooftops that our kid was conceived this
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
It will
Yeah.
never be a secret to her or to them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know it was going to be a her at the time, but our families, our friends, everybody,
Yeah.
we didn't
Would
want it to be a secret.
would you say that you had to mourn the loss of your own children, like with your DNA, to move
Oh,
forward
yeah.
with this? Yeah.
I
I
don't
did
know if it
too.
was, I don't know if it was you. I follow so many fertility profiles on Instagram, but somebody posted, I think it was somebody else, like, when do you consider yourself being like, have beaten like infertility? And my answer was never. Like, yeah,
Oh.
I have my daughter now, but I'm still going to have in the back of my mind of like, what would she be like? Oh, you're going to make me cry. What would she be like if she was biologically mine and biologically my husband's? Like, what would she look like? That's never going to go away. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think. She is so perfect
Yeah.
that it's not I wish you were part of me, because she is part of me. I mean, she
Yeah.
grew inside me.
Yep.
But this journey is definitely a traumatic experience, putting
Yeah.
your body, through this emotional circus.
Yeah.
It's not normal. It's
Yeah.
not normal.
It's not. Two things I want to say. I think asking yourself if what would she look like if she was yours, I think in honesty, I would say asking yourself what would she look like if she was yours, I would say are not good questions to ask yourself.
Right? I know.
Just like during this 2-week wait, all I'm asking myself is, am I pregnant? And
What
it's
did I
like,
tell you?
yeah. And it's like asking yourself the right questions during those times can make such a
Yeah.
huge difference. Um,
Yeah. 100%.
yes. And another
100%.
one more thing I wanted to say is I did have to mourn the loss of having my own DNA.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I wanted to be pregnant at least once with my own DNA and then adopt in some way. And so my brain went quickly there to being okay with donor eggs.
Yeah. And it's funny, before in 2020, my husband and I talked about, do we want to pursue embryo adoption or traditional adoption and look for, two or three siblings, because at this point in 2020, I'm 38 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, if we're going to adopt and have like an instant family, let's find siblings so then we can do it once and never have to go through this again.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm the same. I just wanted to experience pregnancy
Yeah,
if it was possible.
me too.
So that's how we settled on embryo adoption at the time. Because in my head, I'm like, there are millions of embryos sitting in freezers
Mm-hmm.
prior, that were created before a time that they made us sign our lives away on these documents that basically say, what would you do if you get a divorce, if someone dies,
Yep.
if you don't want them, because we have to decide before they're even created, what are we going to do with them, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have to do that now. But back, I don't know when that started, but prior to that, they didn't make anybody do that. So now they have all these embryos sitting somewhere that they can't destroy, they can't donate, they can't do anything to them.
Mm-hmm.
That made me think like, oof, it'd be really nice to be able to scoop up some embryos that are just sitting, waiting for a
Yeah.
family,
Now, did you find this idea of adopting embryos, or did the doctor suggest that?
We knew that this clinic did it from doing research on the clinic before I even went there. And I was like, that's a thing? Like, I didn't even know that that was a thing.
Uh-huh.
So that was always in the back of my mind when we started that at the newest clinic.
Yeah. I found out about embryo adoption by my eye doctor.
What?
Yeah. We were talking about, like, I think me getting pregnant, and she said she was 50 and had been trying for years.
Wow.
And she goes, but I love this snowflake adoption. And I was like, what are you talking about? Tell me more.
Oh, wow.
She probably sat down with me for at least 30 minutes just talking about everything. And they just adopted twins. Like,
Oh,
she had like nothing, like she wasn't prepared, right? And they had been trying to adopt kids. And so they were like, we have twins for you. Are you ready? And she's like, oh my gosh. 2 days later, she had children.
wow.
Yeah. So I have been wanting like snowflake adoption ever since then.
So we went to the clinic knowing that that was a thing, but not necessarily knowing that that's what we'd end up doing.
Yeah.
And my husband, around that same time of 2018, when we went to this new clinic, was talking to this man. I wouldn't say he's a friend, but like an associate. And he was very open about him and his wife's journey, that they have done that.
Uh-huh.
And they had a little, I think their son was conceived that way. And so my husband was like, tell me more. And so the next time they saw each other, he had brought my husband a book called Two Eggs, Two Kids is what it's called. Two Eggs, Two Kids. And it's written by somebody who went through snowflake adoption and how that worked for them and what it means and how they talk to them about how they were created. And that got us excited about it, knowing that this family had success with it and they were going to do it again with a different profile. So they were going to have two kids from different profiles. So, which I thought was so interesting, and I believe in the book, they talk about that too, about how you have that conversation with your children. Because it's like, you were both grown inside mommy, but you actually were created by two other sets of families, like, so that definitely helped us, knowing that we have a support system if we needed it, to come to that decision also during the pandemic. Because we were like, why not? Because that is a scary thing to try to explain to a child. You grew inside mommy. However, the birds and the bees are hard enough to explain to kids sometimes when
Yeah.
it's
Then add
like
some
how,
science in it.
yeah, exactly. So we did our first transfer. We came across a profile that we loved. I don't remember why.
Let's back up.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You're talking about a profile. No, tell me.
Oh, yes.
I guess there's an online bank of embryos website. Is it the same like you're looking at donors? Like, are you on Tinder looking at these profiles?
It kind of feels that way. Ours was specific to our clinic. So
Okay.
there's only like 24 profiles at a time because they reach out to their own patients who have had embryos frozen for quite some time. Yeah. And reach out to them to be like, hey, not sure if you remember that you're still paying for, these guys hanging out in the freezer over here. And just wanted to know if you thought about what you want to do with them. And so every few months, they reach out to new families to add to their catalog, if you will.
Right.
So it is an online thing. You have to have their username and password to get onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And they have fake last names and a number attached to it. And basically you just click on it and it shows you the mother's, her age at creation, her date of birth, age of creation, like hair color, eye color, skin tone, ethnicity, family history. So they do all that for the bio mom and bio dad.
Mm-hmm.
And they make it known if it was donor egg, donor sperm.
Oh.
Okay.
Now, what about
so they
photos?
definitely make that. No photos.
Oh.
Because these people are local.
Mm.
I would run into them at the grocery store, possibly.
Okay.
Right. So it makes sense. A lot of these people are local, if not local to Jacksonville, they're local to the general region because people are driving, to do these cycles and things.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you the list, the family history, and what their outcomes were.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. So you can see if they had a singleton pregnancy, a twin pregnancy, that kind of thing. So they also had how many embryos were available and the grading, which I don't even look at, to be honest with you. My cousin has 2 boys from IVF, traditional IVF,
mm-hmm.
and the grading on both of her sons' embryos were garbage. They were garbage. But my cousin was like, I don't care. They're the only embryos I got from each cycle.
Yeah.
I transferred them. And she got pregnant both times. So I always kept that in the back of my head of the grades don't mean crap. They really don't. And I hope women hear that. The
mm-hmm.
grading, and honestly, I never asked about the grading of my embryos before my transfers. I didn't care. I didn't, because my
mm-hmm.
cousin told me, like, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing what the cost is?
Yeah. So I don't know. It's all different. And we never did that group of IVF cycles where they're like, buy 6 cycles, get 1 free or whatever, or
mm-hmm.
buy this many cycles in ahead of time. And if you don't get a pregnancy out of that, if a live birth out of that, then you get your money back. They have those different. Yeah. We never did that. We always did 1 cycle at a time. So traditional IVF at the clinics that we did were around $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then donor egg was $20,000.
Yep. Same here.
And yes, but that's, and I want women to understand that the $20,000 was for the one time that we had the donor retrieve her eggs. So that does not include the second transfer that we did. That
Right, those are just the eggs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So a transfer alone is only like, I say only,
Right.
but compared to 20 grand. But so when we did a second transfer with the donor egg embryos, that was like $1,500 or something.
What? Mine was
Yeah.
like, I think ours cost like $6,000 or something.
Yeah. And I think it was just because I had meds left over.
Okay.
Maybe, you know what I mean? Like I just remember that second transfer was not as expensive. And I think that's why. I think maybe I had extra meds laying around, so I didn't have to pay for another batch,
Okay.
you know. And again,
they also had to make our embryos. So that's probably why it was 6.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the embryo was already created. It was just sitting in a freezer for our second transfer. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So then donor embryo adoption is less expensive. I think in total, so in 2021, I'm trying to remember, it was medicated. So I did the birth control to time my cycle. And then, but that's grace to prep my uterus for the transfer. But that's it. Like there were no shots for embryo adoption leading up to transfer. So those meds weren't too bad. And then the progesterone, remember I said I'm never doing shots again. So I did the crinone, which is the vaginal suppository stuff. And those were very expensive when I purchased them through a US pharmacy. It was, I think, like, trying to remember, there's 15 tubes in a box, and a box was like $400 or something each. And you have to do that twice a day. So 15 only got you through 7 days. So it was like 400. Yeah. So it's like $400 a week, but you have to do that for 12 weeks if you get pregnant, at least 12 weeks. So in 2021, we did our embryo adoption, and that I think was in total with the meds, it's like $7 or $8 grand total. Wasn't bad compared to what we've already spent in the past. That first transfer, I think we had 3 embryos and we transferred 1. No, we transferred 2. My very first embryo transfer, donor embryo transfer in February of 2021. Oh, excuse me. No, it was end of January was our transfer. We transferred 2 and we got pregnant. Numbers were so high, like in the 300s, I believe, like so high that they were keeping us on our toes of like, this might be twins, right? Like, to be mindful that your number is so high 10 days after transfer that this could be twins. And I was like, good. I was like, because at this point, I'm almost 40. So let's do that. And then 2 weeks later, I miscarried. And that was my first miscarriage. It was my first positive. And it broke me.
What were your thoughts going through the miscarriage?
I blamed myself, and I still do, because and I'm not saying this is why, and I'm not a doctor. I am not in the medical field. I need to preface this, but I got the first COVID vaccine just because I was so excited there was a vaccine ready and available that I was allowed to get. And I didn't ask questions. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of forgot I was pregnant for a second until I went to the place and they asked if I was pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, I am. And they were like, how far along are you? And I was like, literally like 2 weeks. I guess technically, I think they were saying I was like 4 weeks at that time. And the look in the lady's face, I should have just walked away. because you could tell that she was not sure if she wanted to give me that shot,
Mm-hmm.
but she couldn't say anything. She's not allowed.
Yeah.
And 5 days later, I miscarried.
Uh,
So I don't know.
you don't know. Yeah.
Nobody knows. I mean, it was too early. A lot of IVF transfers end in miscarriages. It's just part of the thing because we're manipulating so much of the body and it's just not a natural thing. So it could have happened with or without it. And I know that. And I try to tell myself that all the time when I think about how my now daughter could be a baby sister, like, oh, but it broke me.
Yeah.
And it took me until the following September. So that I miscarried the end of February of 2021, like I said, 2 weeks after we got our positive. And it took us until like September of that year to do it again. We had an extra embryo from that profile. It just took me forever to dust myself off and to head into that space again of sadness, possible sadness.
Sure.
And so we found out again in October that we were pregnant from that second transfer with that same profile. However, my numbers were so low. I think they want your number to be like above 50,
Mm-hmm.
the blood work. And I think I was at like 46 or something.
Whoa.
So they were like, all right, we're going to have you come back in 2 days, to make sure it doubles. And it didn't quite double. So like, okay, come back in another 2 days to see if it hopefully doubles. And it didn't double. So they made me stop all my meds. So it's like, do you consider that a miscarriage? I don't know. I did because I technically was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
But also it was just a way for me to explain what was happening to me and to my body. And, but it also gave me this headspace that like, I can actually get pregnant, but I don't know if I can carry a child. So what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of where I started to go. But my husband was so good. He's like, you're not doing anything wrong. It's just, again, we're manipulating our bodies. We're manipulating this thing that was created in a lab. Like, it's not going to go perfect. I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to try again. I just didn't know again if I was in that headspace. So we actually took a break again. So that was October of 2021. And we took a break until the spring of 2022. And we found a profile. It was fine. I think I kept comparing the profiles to the one that we kept getting positive, that we got two positives from. But it was crazy because even though we chose this profile, we put a quote unquote deposit because you have to kind of reserve it.
Uh-huh.
Because I still mentally wasn't ready to go into the cycle. So this was like March of 2022. I just wasn't physically or mentally prepared.
Sure.
And I just kept going through the profiles, even though we put a down payment, if you will, a reservation on one profile. And all of a sudden there was this new one that popped up in April of 2022, April or May. And I was like, I called the nurse immediately. I was like, I want to switch profiles. I didn't even talk to my husband because I wanted it that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because the bio mom had curly brown hair and green eyes and was born in April, like me. So I have brown hair, brown curly hair, I have green eyes, was born in April. And she was 5'4", I'm 5'4". The profile the embryos were created through donor sperm. So they had the donor sperm's, his height, weight, all of the demographics, right? He looks nothing like my husband. However, he was a personal trainer. My husband used to be a personal trainer. So he was athletic. My husband's very athletic. He played baseball at Auburn. I called the clinic and I was like, I want to switch my money to this profile. No problem, but you have to come back in the office and sign your life away on this new profile. So I called my husband. I was like, we have to go to the clinic in the next few days to sign. And he was like, wait, what did you do? I was like, I'll send you the info, but just trust me. There's something about this profile. Like, it's perfect. He was like, okay. So he saw the profile. He got excited that, oh my God, there's actually somebody that looks like you, or maybe,
Right.
and and the ethnicities were very similar because I am Irish, German, and Syrian, and my husband is Irish, German, and English. And the combination of the profile was basically Irish, German, and English. There was no Syrian, which is fine. I'm pretty sure that would be hard to find. So I wasn't going to hold my breath for the Arabic part, but that just made us very excited. Because like, okay, she could at least resemble us possibly. That quickly got me on board, and we ended up having a transfer like, I don't know, a few weeks later, because that just made me so excited.
Yeah.
And I know that's so egotistical but like we kind of talked about before we recorded, it took me so long to fall in love with myself, and like, especially going through this journey and stuff, that like my hair has always been something I've loved, my big curly hair. Mm-hmm. So the thought that like my potential child could have my big curly hair, like, got me really excited. It's so silly, but if that's what was going to get me through it, then I'm okay with it, So we had our first transfer with this profile. We had 3 embryos, and we did one embryo transfer in June of 2022, and it didn't work. It just flat out no pregnancy. So that was kind of a bummer. So I was like, oh no, I put so much stock into this.
Yeah.
And, but I still was so in love with this profile that in August of 2022, August 19th, 2022, we had our next transfer. Because what also, I want people to know that it takes time to prep your body for the transfer. So for this was the first time in a long time that I actually jumped from one cycle into another. Like I got my first period after that transfer in June of 2022. That didn't work. I got my period, and then at my next period, they started me on the birth control. So I got my period like, sometime the end of June of 2022. They just let you go through that cycle. And then on my next period of July of 2022, they started me on birth control to prep my body for the next transfer. Mm-hmm. So that's why there's such a large gap. You can't really do a transfer once a month. Like, it's kind of what I just want to get some women to understand that might be thinking about these cycles. So August 19th of 2022, we transferred the 2 remaining embryos. And the reason we did that is because, like I said, we had 3 embryos from this profile. 1 embryo was frozen by itself, and the other 2 were frozen together. And so they're frozen in these straws. Mm-hmm. So that way they're prepped and ready for a future transfer, right? Now, you can, if you wanted to, if we had wanted to, we could have had them thawed and separated and then refroze if we wanted to do 3 different transfers, right? Mm-hmm. But every time you thaw and refreeze an embryo, you're putting it at potential risks for genetic mutations. Mm-hmm. It's just part of the science. It's just going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's not guaranteed. Like, it's not necessarily going to happen for sure, but you're just increasing that risk a little bit. And I wasn't willing to risk that. And again, 2022, I'm 40 years old, and transferring 2 embryos ups my chances of being pregnant at all And also, I was okay with the thought of having twins because then we could be one transfer and done, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because we do want to have more than one child. That's just kind of how we always pictured our family. So, August 19th, we transferred the 2 remaining embryos. And on August 29th, we found out we were pregnant.
Oh, and
And
how did you
the rest
feel?
is history. I had a feeling that I was because the symptoms that I had the 2 other times that I had been told I was pregnant, I was having them, but it was not, it was very minor. So I was kind of preparing myself again of you're pregnant, but your numbers are low
Mm-hmm.
because my symptoms were and my symptoms were like a dizziness that I can't explain. It's like, it almost felt like vertigo. If anybody has ever had vertigo, it's a specific type of dizziness that's kind of what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it wasn't constant. It was just, it would come and like smack me in the face and then dissipate. And that's how it felt. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant. But I did, that was the first time I think that I did not take a pregnancy test before.
Really? Why not?
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't feel the need.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, and another thing I didn't do is I didn't change my diet. I didn't I didn't do anything different
Mm-hmm.
for this time. And I was just so tired of changing my life for like a brief moment of time. And I know better. Like that's not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like these things that I eat and that I drink and that, you know, I do taking walks, you know, doing Peloton, whatever, stopping that for a brief moment is not going to change an outcome,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I don't know. I think it just, I felt so at peace of whatever was going to come. I just didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's so funny is I was I was at work when the office called me to tell me I was pregnant. And when the nurse told me I was pregnant, I was like, oh no, I'm literally about to head out to go to Tampa for like 3 or 4 days for work. He's like, well, we need to test you, you know, and when you get back to make sure your numbers are quadrupling at that time. And I'm like, okay, like I promise on my way back into town, like I'll swing by. And I got off the phone with her. I called my husband from the car as I'm driving to Tampa to tell him we were pregnant. I was like, I guess I'll see you in 4 days and we'll celebrate. Like, I'm so sorry that this is happening. Like, so we didn't even get to hug each other and like be
Oh.
excited together in the same room. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer. But yeah, when I got my blood work done, so that was a Monday, and I got my blood work done Thursday afternoon, and they called me within like 2 hours. The nurse was like, we're gonna expedite this for you. I was like, okay. She called me within 2 hours. She goes, your numbers are more than doubled, like you're pregnant. Like, congratulations. Like you don't have to come back in until, you know, your 6-week ultrasound or whatever. And I was like, okay. And the rest is history. Like we kept going back. And again, because it's an IVF baby and I was over 40, I was high risk. So I did have to go not only to the clinic, but also to a high risk maternal fetal medicine doctor. So, and then once I graduated from the clinic and went to my normal OB, I still had to go to both like throughout my pregnancy. However, I loved it. So we're all going to be geriatric, right? On that who are listening, most likely. The best part of it is you get to see the little one on the sonogram so frequently compared to if I had been pregnant when I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
You only get to see the little one on the sonogram ultrasound, you know, once or twice. And then you can pay for the rest or whatever. But no, with the maternal fetal medicine doctors, like every appointment was an ultrasound. So I have so many ultrasound printouts, which is so lovely.
Yeah.
So you get to see them grow a lot more frequently, which is great. So,
Yeah. Well, tell us
yeah,
how your pregnancy went.
my pregnancy was amazing. The universe, I truly believe, was finally like, listen, we gave you hell for a reason, but also was this journey teaching me to stop planning everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop it. Just stop it. You can't control everything. And so I just think that the more time went on, I loosened up and I eased up, and the pregnancy was supposed to happen exactly how it did,
Mm-hmm.
when it did. And my pregnancy was so easy. I didn't have any issues. They, the maternal fetal medicine doctors were just so impressed by everything. They couldn't believe how strong my cervix was at my age, being an IVF baby, being gone through so many medical procedures. They were just so impressed by my health and the fact that I didn't develop gestational diabetes, that I didn't, because all these things that can happen to anybody during pregnancy are higher risk when you're over 40 and when it's an IVF baby, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the universe owed me. I truly think they did. It did. That the universe was like, we're going to ease up on you. And I had the best pregnancy out of anybody I ever met, to be honest.
Wow.
I had very little nausea. My nausea was more of like food aversion than it was like nausea, right? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that I felt sick. It's just that nothing sounded good except bread and pizza. That's all I wanted for, I think, like the first 14 weeks. And that made me feel bad because I'm like, this poor baby is growing inside me and hasn't seen a vegetable or like a true protein in weeks. But the doctor assured me, like, as long as you're eating, it doesn't matter. Take your prenatals, you know, and eat what you can, and stay hydrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I gave myself grace and I just ate a lot of pizza and bagels for a really long time. And then eventually that food aversion went away,
Mm-hmm.
and I pretty much ate, anything and everything I wanted going forward until she was born. So,
How did
yeah.
you decide on your pregnancy care doctor?
Well, my OB has been my OB since I moved to Jacksonville, probably. Like I found them because they were or I should say, since I started my career in forensics, because they were in my network. They were close to my office. And so when I met her, I fell in love with her. And she's been my OB since like 2009. But it's funny because she's in a practice with a bunch of other women. And they were very open of like, just because I'm your regular scheduled OB doesn't mean I'm going to be the one that
Mm-hmm.
delivers your baby. And that's fine. So I spent my pregnancy meeting as many of the women that I could in
Mm-hmm.
the practice. And it was funny because the one that ended up delivering my daughter was one that I never met. So I tried what I could, but also at my practice, it's usually an appointment with a nurse. It's not necessarily an appointment with the actual OB.
Oh.
So, yeah. And to me, I honestly was fine with, because I didn't have a birth plan. I didn't want a birth plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I was so tired of controlling everything and having expectations that I decided that as long as my daughter, because we knew she was a girl, we found out. And as long as my daughter enters this world safely and healthy, I don't care how she gets here.
Mm-hmm.
That was my mentality. I knew that I might not know the doctor who's going to deliver her. But honestly, the doctor was there for like 5 seconds anyway, to be honest. I vaguely remember her even being in the delivery room because we'll get into it, but I did not have an easy labor and delivery. So it was the nurses in labor and delivery that I relied on more than anything. So
let's go back to finding out the sex. Tell us that story.
So, I mean, basically they called us to tell us. So we ended up getting that genetic test when I was pregnant, just to make sure that she didn't have, not to make sure she didn't have, but to have the knowledge of, you know, any diseases or illnesses or, you know, Down syndrome or something, just so we could be prepared. It was not going to change our mentality of if we were going to have her or not. But so they called us the day before Thanksgiving to tell us that everything was fine genetically. And they asked us if we wanted to know the gender. And we were like, yes. Like, we've been waiting 10 years. Well, at that point, it was like 11 years. Well, no, 10 years. 10 years for her. So we were like, yeah, tell us. And they said it's a girl. And I mean, my husband was like, I knew it. And I didn't care. I just didn't care. I mean, meaning like, good, great. It's a girl. Great. It's a boy. I did not care what it was going to be. I've been waiting so long. It could have been a Cookie Monster and I would have been thrilled. So it could have been that gremlin that I had nightmares about, right? That I mentioned before. So, but yeah, so that was pretty exciting. So we found out just like that. And then we decided to have a gender reveal for the family. So we flipped it on its head and did a gender reveal to the family. So we knew what it was, but they had to wait a few weeks to find out. So my whole family was so excited. Like I said, 3 nephews. There's only 3 grandkids before her. And so having a granddaughter was so exciting for everybody.
Was there a product that you couldn't live without that helped you through pregnancy?
So my sister gave me her pregnancy body pillow thing. She called it her boyfriend. So I still sleep with it to this day.
Oh, wow.
It's the only thing that, and it's the one that's shaped like a C. And the secret to it, and I think that this is where people get caught up in how pregnancy pillows aren't comfortable, is you don't use any, I didn't use any other pillows. I used the top part of the C under my head. It curled under my belly a little bit and then in between my knees. And that was like the best way to sleep. So that was it. That was, the other thing are a pair of sneakers that I could slide off without untying. They're a huge Instagram clickbait. They're a very popular brand on Instagram, and I fell for it, and I'm glad I did, because I was able to go for I walked my whole pregnancy. And so I was able to go for my walks very easily because I could just step into my shoes and go. No bending over and tying my shoes or anything like that.
Yeah, I bet that's nice.
So they wanted me induced because I'm old. Not old, but I'm older. And they didn't want me going past my due date. So what some people don't know, and I definitely didn't know, is just because they schedule you for an induction does not necessarily mean that that's when you're going to be induced. So I said I wanted, if they were going to make me choose a date, I said I want her on Cinco de Mayo. Mama wants a margarita. So they had me scheduled for May 4th to start the ripening process, which is a whole other thing. And then they would start the induction on the 5th, and hopefully she would have been born. Well, we called on the 4th. There's no room in the hospital. So I had to call back on the 5th. No room in the hospital. I had to call back on the 6th. And they said, yep, we have room for you. So for the women out there, just keep it in mind that is a possibility, that just because you're scheduled doesn't mean that's when they're going to be able to take you. So that was fun. So they did the ripening process. What that means is I was not dilated. I was not effaced at all. I should have just taken that as a sign to let nature take its course, but we wanted to meet our daughter, so we decided to go along with it. So we did 12 hours of one medication called Cervidil, which is basically an insert that is supposed to soften everything and open things up, but it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So then at midnight so we're now to May 7th, they were like, okay, we're going to do that again for another 12 hours. Fun. So they inserted another one, and that did nothing again. So that was fun again. And then, so they were like, well, let's try another medicine from the ripening process called miso. I don't know the full name. And that's a 4-hour process, but it's a pill. It's like, okay, but you can't eat. That's fine. So we did the miso. My sister gets into town. She's from South Carolina. She comes into town, and I asked her to bring my yoga ball, that bouncing ball.
Mm-hmm.
And she brought it. And so I'm bouncing on it. And that's when my labor finally started. And yeah, that was rough because it progressed so quickly in that I developed preeclampsia, which is so crazy. So my blood pressure went through the roof. I vaguely remember things because of it. And luckily this all happened after the epidural. So the pain wasn't bad, but I just was dizzy. I was just not myself. So when you develop preeclampsia and high blood pressure during labor, they have to put you on magnesium. So I was on magnesium while I was in labor. And what that kind of does is makes you loopy. So I don't remember a lot of things because it's trying to relax your blood vessels to bring your blood pressure down, right? Mm-hmm. So it relaxes everything. So luckily, none of that ever affected the baby's blood pressure, heart rate, none of that. Thank God. So she was delivered on Monday, May 8th at like 11:10 in the morning. So technically my labor was over 48 hours long.
Wow.
Yeah. But I was only in active labor for like 20, mm-hmm. which is still a long time, but I was on an epidural the whole time. So my pain was minimal, but so she was born on a Monday at 11:10. And then they have to keep me on magnesium for at least 24 hours after she's born. So I was still bedridden for 24 hours after she was born because the magnesium drip, like I said, affects your muscles and everything. So you can't get out of bed because you're a fall risk. I was able to hold her and everything. That wasn't the issue. It's just, I still had a catheter in. I'd asked for a bedpan. So it's not the cute, adorable image that I had in my head of what recovery would be in a hospital with my newborn, right? Yeah. I imagined I'd be walking the halls with her or walking around the room, bouncing her and looking cute. And no, none of that. I looked wretched and I smelled because I couldn't take a shower. And then they take me off magnesium on Tuesday, but you have to stay in the hospital for at least 24 hours after the magnesium to monitor you and the baby. So I was in the hospital for another 24 hours. I was actually in the hospital for another 36 hours after that, by the time I got discharged. So that was not fun either. But I will say the hospital that we delivered at was lovely. The people were lovely. The food was fine. But, it just wasn't the experience. And I'm glad I didn't have any expectations because that sure as heck wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah. So, what about your recovery?
That was hard too because I was so bloated from the magnesium that I did not have any swelling, really. It was very minimal. And then the magnesium caused me to gain like 30 pounds of water weight on top of the natural pregnancy pounds I had put on. So I looked like a completely different person from the waist down. My legs did not fit into anything that I had brought with me to wear home. So my husband had to go home and just find a flowy dress for me to go home in. I couldn't wear shoes out of the hospital. I just wore socks because my feet didn't fit into anything. And I could barely walk because my legs weighed so much. I had a hard time walking. So I spent a lot. That lasted for about 2 weeks, unfortunately. And because I was sitting so much, my stitches tore. She was a vaginal delivery and I had a 2nd-degree tear, which is average. But my stitches tore because I was sitting on a soft, comfy couch for 2 weeks straight. And trying to get up off that soft, cushy sofa, my stitches tore.
Wow.
So they ended up just taking them out. And so I had to heal from the inside out instead of the outside in like you normally do. So that took longer. And I'm still experiencing it. I'll be 11 weeks postpartum on Monday, and I'm still experiencing discomfort because I'm still healing. Yeah. So again, not what I imagined, but I was cleared at my 6-week postpartum appointment to do, moderate activity and all that fun stuff. So my swelling had been gone basically since probably I was 3 weeks postpartum. And luckily my baby weight just fell off just because she's such a good eater and a good sleeper. I contribute that all to her. I'm getting 9 to 11 hours a night.
What? That's amazing.
I like I said, the universe is looking down on me and looking down on us. She's been a great sleeper since she was born. I mean, obviously I had to wake her up when she was first born because you have to feed them at a certain amount of time for, but eventually we just been letting her sleep. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
What about mentally? How are you doing?
Much better. I will say that the first couple weeks, I was in a weird place of like, what did I do? Like, our lives were fine. What did we do? Because I was in so much pain. I did not feel like myself. I missed my friends. I missed my life. And it was hormones, I'm sure too. But I think that was my baby blues. That was the way my baby blues showed up and I thank God I have so many friends with kids that I reached out to and I was like, is this normal or do I need to go see somebody? And they were like, it's normal, but don't be afraid to go see somebody if you need to seek professional help. And so I have been in touch with my primary care physician because she's amazing. And she just assures me that everything I'm going through is normal. Good. So, but yeah, that was mentally for the first 2 weeks. I was like, what did I do? Like our lives were great. What did I do? And I feel so bad that I ever felt that way. So then I was feeling bad about feeling that, the whole cycle. So, but now she's cooing and smiling and maybe not purposefully laughing, but it's like a weird giggle thing. And, and so the more she grows, the more I'm like, oh, this is what I was waiting for, you know? So she was just a potato for, the first month. They just eat, sleep, and poop, Sure. And now she eats, sleeps, poops, and smiles. So that's fun.
Just adding on every month.
Yeah, literally. So mentally, I'm so much better.
Oh, good. Now, we do have one Instagram question. She says, thinking about embryo adoption too. Any thoughts on self-matching ? Legal issues? She's asking, are you matching your same hair color, all that stuff, which you did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was very open to that, which, that was because it fell literally like in my lap that happened. But honestly, we are Caucasian, we're white. And that was the only criteria at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
that we had was that, I just wanted to give birth to a white baby. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's pretty normal. So that was the only criteria we actually went in with it. That
Mm-hmm.
and what their results were, their pregnancy results. So I'm wondering if the legal issue part of that question, because there are some agencies out there that they only provide like they freeze the embryos and they not selling is not the right word, but they donate them or whatever to the couple. And a lot of them, you have to have a lawyer because I'm wondering if that's what she's asking. Cause our clinic, it's all through the clinic. So we
Right.
didn't have any lawyers involved. We had to sign a lot of stuff saying
Mm-hmm.
that we understand that this is anonymous, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and so did they. I'm assuming that the donor couple had to sign their lives away too, basically, and say,
Yeah.
like, we understand that this is going to be anonymous, all that. So, I don't think there's any issue with self matching. I just think that's natural that you
Yeah.
just kind of, you just kind of want the baby to sort of resemble you in one way or another. I think that's just natural.
I agree.
Um,
Totally.
yeah, I don't see any issues with that. But like I said, we were just at first when we first saw that this was an opportunity for us that, it was just going to be a white couple that
Mm-hmm.
we were going to look for. That was the only criteria really. And so,
Yeah. When we were looking at donors for just the eggs, you first start off by looking, I want the exact me, blonde hair, blue eyes, 5'1". And then
right.
it's like, by the time you're done, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And,
100%.
speaking of yours, you kind of had this perfect match at the end. We had the same thing because we had to cancel 2 donors. And then she said, well, we have this new donor. And she is
Amazing.
just, yeah, she's beautiful. She's a great smile. And I'm like, she's it. She's it. No other
That's
options.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I also kept in consideration though. So my little sister has 3 boys. They are all blonde haired and light eyes. My sister has green eyes and dark, dark, dark brown hair, almost black.
Wow.
And her boys look nothing like that. Like they
Uh-huh.
resemble her in their features, but just blonde versions of her. So I have to remember that. Like just because like if I would have had a biological baby, it could have just been my husband's mini me and I wouldn't have been in it at
Right.
all anyway.
Yeah.
And
You never know.
the funny thing is our daughter looks a lot like my husband.
Oh,
It's so
wow.
weird. It's
That's
so
cool.
weird. Like people who they know about our journey have been like afraid to say that, but like I'll say it and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say that how much she looks like JT." And I'm like, "No, it's okay. Like I see it, even though she's not biologically related to us. Like it's very strange.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the constant eye, like she does this like scowling of her eyebrows, like she
Uh-huh.
scowls. And my husband does that. I'm like, I don't know if it's that or what, but, and her hair is my color, which is crazy, but obviously that could change because I
Mm-hmm.
was born with blonde hair and her eyes are becoming more and more green every day.
Cool.
So, but again, that could change too. I don't know. So it is bizarre. It is bizarre that she looks like my husband and she's not even related to us. So
So
who
neat.
knows?
So neat. Okay, let's get into our lightning round questions. Jamie, do you have more plans to have kids in your 40s?
Yes, we are going to keep our fingers crossed that now that my body knows how to be pregnant,
Uh-huh.
that we're hoping that it might naturally happen because that has happened to 3 women that I am very close with who had IVF babies as number 1
Mm-hmm.
and babies number 2 showed up as a surprise, like within a year of the birth of baby number 1
Oh, cool.
because they didn't think they could become pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but also we had such a great experience with embryo adoption that I would not be adverse to trying that again in a couple years. So my pregnancy was so easy. And I don't know if it was just because I'm in such a good headspace at 40, 41 compared to where I was at 30. Like some people that I know at 30 were so stressed and like scared. And I don't know. I enjoyed every second of it, and I would love to experience it again. Women should not have to experience childlessness if they want a family so bad or a child so bad. But this is an option. Like it's really, and it's not as expensive, and not to like put medical advice out there at all. But I ended up getting my meds through through a website that saved me thousands of dollars. And yes, it was from overseas, but my nurse was very happy with them.
And what has been your biggest challenge being pregnant in your 40s?
I kept doing math in my head that I'm 41 when she's born. And then when she's 20, I'm going to be 61. And then when she's 41, I'm going to be 82. Like I kept doing that to myself.
Yeah.
And so, and I have older parents, and that makes me sad to think that I could be like that. And I'm going to be older actually than my parents are. So it just is what it is. And I just have to remember that age is just a thing. It literally doesn't mean anything. And we're living longer and longer now. And, you know, and I'm a very healthy person. And now I have even more of a reason to stay active and, you know, just take care of myself more. Because it just wasn't that much of an issue when my parents were in their 30s and 40s. They weren't really active and looking into nutrition and stuff like that. Wasn't really an issue. I kept that number thing in my head. It was messing with me, and I just try to snap myself out of it. So I definitely, if women out there are, you know, trying to get pregnant in their 40s, like just remember that doesn't mean anything. It's easy to get caught up in that number, or comparing myself to women who are 25, you know, with their first kid and doing that numbers game. It's fine. We're all on this journey for different reasons. It happened for different reasons, I believe. And the perfect baby is going to come to you when it's supposed to. Just that's how I got myself through it. Huh.
I love that.
Because she's right here. She's right here proving it to me.
I can hear her.
Yes. So
is there anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth?
Honestly, I didn't read. I didn't do classes. I just listened to my body. I'm just very in tuned at 40. I think that's also a plus of being pregnant in my 40s versus in my 30s. I'm very in tune with my body. And I was just so over taking control of everything that I was just, you know, open to whatever was going to happen. So really just not having expectations was probably the best thing I could do for myself. And that's kind of just what got me through. I really think was just taking day by day, not comparing myself to other women's pregnancies, and not having expectations. That was probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, that's perfect. And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
That's hard because, like I said, like my pregnancy was so lovely, and so I was just so excited. Maybe just to, oh boy, I wish I would have done better with documenting the different milestones that I had. I did bump photos like for myself. I did do that. But like this week, like I don't remember when I started feeling her, like the exact, you know, I don't know the date. I don't know how many weeks I was. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, like journaling and documenting. I don't have anything. I started a journal when we started IVF because I wanted my future child to like see the journey.
Mm-hmm.
But it got so depressing that I stopped it years ago. And there's just, and I still don't even have the guts to go in and finish it and
Mm-hmm.
like end it. So I just think journaling, I wish I would have done it more because now it just seems silly to go back and add to that journal that I stopped. But maybe one day I'll be able to finish it or to add to it or to continue it, maybe might be a better word I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for.
What would you tell yourself instead of being pregnant? What would you tell yourself during that 10-year journey if you could go back?
It's all going to be worth it. Just
Mm-hmm.
wait, like the perfect, it's, and honestly, that 10 years made me understand the term like silver lining so much because I had to practice that all the time of like searching for what could be good in this sadness of
Mm-hmm.
this emptiness I felt. And it's all going to be worth it. Like I just, and it was just the silver linings of it all. I was able, just being able to go out with my friends for as long as I've been able to without having to worry about childcare or travel easily and all these things that I think I took for granted when I was younger, like those were my silver linings, just being able to sleep through the night and, being hungover without changing diapers and like
Yeah.
stupid things. But like, it got me through the sadness, just
Mm-hmm.
being able to find the silver linings and it all got me to exactly where I was supposed to be. I truly feel that way. Like she was supposed to be ours, the way she was supposed to be ours. Like, it just all feels meant to be for us. It does.
Yeah.
So I would just tell myself, just like, you're going to grow and you're going to learn and you're going to be mad and sad, but it's all going to be worth it. It's all going to be worth it. You're going to learn from it and you're going to be better for it. And I honestly think I'm going to be such a better mom now than if I had been pregnant 10 years ago. I really do.
Yeah. I love that. And where can our listeners find you on the internet? Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So Instagram, I am private, but if you just send me a message about how you found me. So I'm on Instagram, James82_, and that's how you can find me. And you can tag me, Jamie, if you want, in the
Okay.
things. But yeah, just let me know when you friend request me how you found me. That way I can accept your friend request because now I'm private because of my nugget. So, but I'm not stingy with the friend acceptances, I swear.
And Jamie, is there anything else you want to add to your birth or pregnancy?
I mean, I just think it's just you got to do what's going to work best for you. Don't worry about, at first I was worried about what my parents were going to think of this whole embryo adoption thing, but they love her so much and they were kind of confused at what this all meant at the beginning, but just do what is in your heart. Like, don't worry about what other people are going to say. Just, that's the only thing I could say is just don't compare your journey to anyone else's. Everyone's journey is important. Even though mine was 10 years long, it's no more traumatic or exceptional than someone's journey that was a year long. I don't want women comparing themselves to other people. Just your journey is important and do what feels right.
Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun being here.
That wraps up another amazing episode on Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant podcast. If you want to be a part of the show, I would love to hear what you have to say. I want to add these messages at the end of the 1-year anniversary show, which is coming up in October. To do that, I have a link in the description, or you can go to the website, click on Contact Us, and click on the orange button. I would love to have you be a part of it. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Monday.